Great, you've already achieved some basic mapping. Again, just as a quick bit of revision, you've gone and ticked in the questions box, and then you've supplied and designed a question there. So you've then clicked down into the 2.2 criterion, added your Q for your question code, and actually done that. And that is the type of basic tool that we use here at Evoke. We go into the current unit of competency, we get that off training.gov.au, and we just customize it. We get a Word document and we create those columns and do it like that. And that way we can assure that it's the current unit. Okay, so let's have a little bit of a sit back here now. First of all, make sure that you've saved that up here in the left-hand column here. And that's a bit of overkill, isn't it? Look at those 4 ticks. Her qualification proved that she uses presentation aids. Her teacher's registration has to remain current. So, you know, that probably would have been enough on its own. But here she is. She's already given us a product, probably a sample of one of her presentation materials, a PowerPoint presentation. So we didn't actually need a question. That product was very, very, very strong evidence of that. So how do you know? Like in this one, there's up to 3.3 as performance criterion. There's so many. Does it mean you're going to have to do a question for every single one? Absolutely not. So let's draw your attention down. We're taking this a step further. When we unpack a unit of competency after the performance criterion, let's go a bit faster. We get to a section called required skills and knowledge. So the essential knowledge, the essential questions that you have to ask is down here under the required knowledge. So one of them is data collection methods that will support the review of presentations. So we need to be asking Susan, what sort of data do you collect so you can review that your presentation was successful, that it was a high quality presentation? And think about your target audience. Think about the language that you're going to use there. And this type of designing questions will become easier in time as you gain experience, and sometimes time can take years. So part of that validation process, and really it's more at a diploma level where you're designing your assessment tools, you know, that isn't so much the job of, you know, a starting trainer and assessor at a Cert 4 level. Usually you've got all of that already built by an experienced trainer and assessor, and they're at least at the equivalence of a diploma level, okay, with lots and lots of experience. So don't worry too much. I would expect that you'd walk into an RTO and your questions and all of your mapping, all of that RPL kit is going to be provided, and your RTO might have a different system to what we're showing you here, okay? Right now though, we need to gather some evidence to know that you can map and know that you can ask some basic questions for assessment, okay? So showing you here required knowledge, let's build a question around that. So we have to know where to map this question to. Data collection methods. Let's go back here. Don't forget you would be an industry expert. Yours isn't necessarily going to be TAE. Yours might be senior first aid, for example, and you're going to understand the waffle within each of these performance criterion as the industry expert. So let's have a look. Up here I worked out that talking about data collection to check on the effectiveness of your presentation related really closely to 3.2, which is seek and discuss reactions to the presentation. Seeking and discuss, collecting data. Alright, so we've found the relevant one, and you've seen here I've jumped ahead and I've already mapped it. Sorry, 3.2. And now I'm just going to complete that mapping, selecting, remember that last column was questions, caps lock and a tick because it's set to that Wingdings 2 font. You can see up there on that top left hand side there, that's how we're making the tick. by hitting caps lock and P on the keyboard when your font is set to Wingdings 2. So there we are. We've indicated that was a required question. We're going to ask the question now. Hitting our Q code, that's just the process here at Evoke for all of our trainers and assessors. And we're going to ask a question. So we might say, give an example of data you collect to check your presentations are effective. Now sit back, look at it, and see if you can polish that. See if it makes sense. You've got to then test it on certain people. Show friends and family. Does this make sense? Do you understand this? And they might need more context. They might need more information. So let's elaborate a little bit more. Give an example of data you collect from your learners to check your presentations are effective. Okay? So she didn't provide evidence, she didn't provide a product, but we are going to ask that question. Okay, now here's a suggested product. Maybe we could look at any self-reflections that she's made, but in this case Susan didn't provide self-reflections. All right, so we're going to ask her that question because we really need, under that required knowledge, to make sure that, okay, she can present, yep, she can make glorious PowerPoints, yep, she's confident in front of a learner, but a key essential one in this is that she knows, as a presenter, she's got to be getting that learner feedback. Now that could be formal, on an actual learner questionnaire that she collects, but usually in a school system, because she's a K-12 primary school teacher, you're not going to sit down with grade 2 children and expect them to answer a formal survey. What, are you happy with the quality of your teacher's presentation? They won't even be able to read the question. Okay, so you've got to contextualise. You've got to meet the client's needs. You've got to think about what Susan has available to provide. So getting an example of that. Give me an example of how you would collect data, or how you gain feedback from your students. Okay, so maybe you want to change that again. Give an example of feedback or data you collect from your learners to check your presentations are effective. All right, so you're welcome to use that question as it is. You'll just need to show me that you've ticked that further column there on the right under the questions column, that you've put in the queue and you've written that question. Okay, and you can't give assessor guidelines in this because you're using your discretion as an assessor to determine if her response is satisfactory. Okay, and if she's not sure of your question, just re-ask it in a different way. It's okay to prompt so long as you're not providing the answers. Don't forget to save your work.